time for us to invite the co-founder of SGL, Mr. Chirag Soni, for the future of diamonds. As they always say, diamonds are not just girls, but even boys' best friends. The future of diamonds and one-stop solution by Mr. Chirag Soni, please. We welcome you, Chirag, sir. Pleasure meeting you always, sir.
Thank you, Soma and Samit, for organizing this TED Talk of our industry. Before we start, I want to ask you something, if anybody can answer this. You know, when was the first GEM lab? When did the first GEM lab start and where? Can anybody throw an answer here? 2004. My friend, sorry, you're far off. Any guesses? You can get better? You can still get better? It is 1908. The Gemological Association of Great Britain was started in London. And 21 years after that, Mr. Robert Shipley from GIA took a course at the GEMA in London, and he started GIA in Los Angeles. And the first educational course that they conducted was back in 1932. Why are we talking about this is because as we've gone along, the industry has changed a lot more. The way we work, the way we do businesses have changed. And we are seeing a whole different world, specifically after COVID, towards the end of it. I'm going to talk about a few things today, including, but not limited to, of course, is the natural diamond and the laboratory grown diamonds industry, where it stands, why both of them are holding an equal importance in the consumer minds today, and what are the demand supply constraints that you will see in the years to come, as well as one of the new services that we've launched, which we call it the Triple Shield. It's a service where we offer one-stop solution for certification, hallmarking, as well as metal QC. So let's look at what is the diamond supply as far as the mines are concerned like. Right? So you have the top three mines, which most of us are aware of, the Alrosa, Rio Tinto, and the De Beers mines, which between the three of them constitute about 70% of the global rough diamond supply. Right? And you're looking at Russia, you're looking at Africa, Canada being the key centers over here. And what is the output from these mines like is what you see on your screen right now. So we are looking at about 136 million carats that are going to be produced this year. This is, of course, something that is being projected. Last year, the production, of course, went down because of COVID, and there has been a major supply constraint because of that. I, in fact, just got to know some very interesting figures on the demand side of it for natural diamonds, which is about 27% rise in the consumer demand for diamonds in US alone compared to 2019. So I'm not going to include 2020 in this obviously because it has been a different year altogether. But if you look at 2019 versus 2021, the diamond consumption in a market like US has jumped by almost 27%. And this brings us to the favorable supply-demand fundamentals that are projected right here. Now, if you look at this closely, what does it say? The demand, even if we take a conservative figure of 4% year-on-year increase in the demand for diamonds across the world, okay, and if you go further down and just say there's going to be only 1% increase in diamond consumption around the world, we are still looking at a supply deficit because the production stands at 139 million. Projected one, of course. Do not count the last year. The last year, the production was much, much lower. And I'm guessing a lot of you all already are aware of it because in the recent past, some of the diamond categories, some of the prices have increased. And this shows a strong demand. Now, one of the reasons we're talking about is that when laboratory grown diamonds were introduced to the industry and all the way up till I think last year and even today, there was a big question we all had that what is going to happen with the natural diamonds demand? Is it going to be the case where consumers will start opting for laboratory grown diamonds, or is it not going to be the case? Are lab grown diamonds going to take away a share of the natural diamond industry, or is it not going to be the case? Now what you're seeing here is very, very apparent that with the given situation where in a market like US where 48% of the world's diamonds are consumed, there is a 27% rise in demand. And this means that where is this gap going to be filled? Somebody has to fill this gap, and as we are moving along, we are seeing laboratory grown diamonds are doing that very, very well. So imagine if we did not have lab grown diamonds as a substitute which is being offered to the natural diamonds with of course their own specs and their properties, probably the demand constraint, the demand supply constraint must have been much, much more higher. So if we are looking at a small increase in the pricing in certain categories, I think that would have been a much different scenario altogether. And why is it that people are talking so much about laboratory grown diamonds versus natural diamonds? Why it cannot be in the same ecosystem? Why it cannot be one single industry that can serve both these different products? So let's have a quick look at how laboratory grown diamonds are grown. Can you play this video, please?
CVD diamonds, named after its process, chemical vapor deposition, undergo the same process as natural diamonds. It all starts with a diamond seed. A thin layer is cut from the natural diamond to form the CVD diamond seed. This seed is a type 2A seed, the purest form of diamond, 100% carbon. The seed is then polished and prepared to a required thickness for it to be placed in the CVD plasma reactor. Once placed in the reactor, the process begins, exactly the same as found under the surface of the earth. An intense environment of the temperature and pressure is created just like that found in the earth. When the diamond is growing in a natural environment, several other impurities like nitrogen and boron enter the diamond formation along with the gases. CVD process is controlled and doesn't allow any impurities to enter the diamond. Carbon particles slowly start disintegrating and forming layers on top of the diamond seed. The result is a rough CVD diamond, the same as a natural diamond, only purer. The diamonds are then removed with precision, and the cutting process begins. And they are the same. CVD diamonds have the same physical, chemical, and optical properties as the natural diamond. the guarantee of quality, the beauty of nature. A diamond deserves to be perfect.
So thanks to Limelight for the video that we just saw here. Now, do we know that why laboratory grown diamonds are becoming an important category, especially in the Western world, and you're seeing some of the brands launch already in India as well, including Limelight, is because physically and chemically, they're exactly the same product. And the only difference that you have is at the atomic level. I'm a gemologist myself. If you will give me both the diamonds and if I have to loop them and tell you which one is natural versus which one is a lab-grown diamond, I won't be able to do it. I need, or the laboratory needs, specific instruments to discriminate from one to the other. And that is why this category is on an uptrend. It's not one of those other materials that we have seen in the past as an industry, like the cubic zirconia or the moissanite. And it is unique, of course. It is something which probably is a little more sustainable, at least I would say. There's a lot of controversy going around that as well. But obviously we know that if there is something which is produced in a laboratory, is going to be a little more sustainable compared to the natural diamonds. Once again, what we are trying to say here is that both are existing in the ecosystem. There are customers who are excited about laboratory grown diamonds probably, and there are customers who would only want to go with natural diamonds. Right? But what are the key price drivers here with natural versus lab grown? With natural, it is the rarity, it is the symbolism, it is the supply discipline, of course. And with lab grown, I would say there is the cost, and then there is the sustainability angle. So, once again, both are coexisting, both have their own set of customers. We are going to see a lot of change going forward within India. Already the Western world is seeing that. About 78% of US retailers already carry lab-grown diamonds in one or the other form, including some of the top houses like Signet. So, taking this forward, let's dive a little deeper on the laboratory grown front now and say which is the biggest market. Obviously US, right? And we have China and India in terms of production as well. But the consumption in India is still just scratching the surface, I would say. There are a handful of people who have launched their collections or launched the brands from the laboratory grown diamond perspective and are seeing a strong demand. But what is it overall being projected as? LGDs are perceived to be a fashion category, something that is much more price conscious, obviously. Consumers have the benefit of buying a larger stone at the same price of a natural diamond and things like that. Now, something very, very crucial. Does anybody here know the difference between a HPHT lab grown diamond versus a CVD? Any answers? What is the difference between a HPHT lab grown diamond versus a CVD lab grown diamond? Yes. Type 2A, yes, that's a good point. Anybody else? And what does type 2A mean? So, some of the good diamonds around the world, historically originated from India as well, including the Kohinoor, is a type 2A diamond. Type 2A is one of the purest form of carbon. And everything you grow as a CVD diamond is type 2A. right? That is how it is genetically made. Versus HPHT, which is a high pressure, high temperature technology, which has some of the metallic inclusions, and you can say that it is genetically not the same as a CVD. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there is also a price difference between CVD versus HPHT. What we see out in the market is a lot of smaller stones are HPHT lab-grown diamonds. Majority of the solitaires are CVDs. And where do we get the HPHT from? It's the major producing center is China. India imports the rough and polishes it well. Surat is, of course, the leading center to polish these diamonds. Versus CVD, where India is becoming one of the larger centers to grow CVDs now. So Surat is not just a center where you can say a majority of the diamonds are cut and polished today. Surat has also become one of the centers where most of the CVD production around the world happens. So we are leading in terms of the CVD growing technology and in terms of the size. And there was a recent report from GJPC, which I would like to share with you all, is that the exports of lab-grown diamonds from India have jumped to 2,700 crores in the last quarter alone. And this is a GJPC report. So imagine we did $77 million in the entire year from April 2020 until March 2021. And in 4 months of this year, that is April, May, June, July, we have crossed 2,700 crore of export from India. This shows that there is a strong demand for laboratory grown diamonds in the Western world at least. Because these numbers represent a 363% jump year on year. And honestly, when I was at JCK just about a couple of weeks back in Las Vegas, we saw 67 companies participating at JCK versus for lab-grown diamonds versus 87 companies from the natural diamond segment. So once again, the natural diamond still plays an important role. It is still having the lion's share of this entire industry and this market. But what are we talking about is how fast this segment is growing. And probably it is something that cannot be ignored. I am also made aware that this year at the IIJ show, there are going to be companies that are laboratory grown diamond growers or brands, and they're going to exhibit as well. So you can keep your eyes open for them. Let me talk about the Indian side of the laboratory grown diamonds now. We have Limelight Diamonds, who has been one of the first movers. They are also a vertically integrated company. And then we have a very, very interesting retail outlet called Wonder Diamonds. We certified this store in February this year in Coimbatore. Okay, and I was personally shocked to see that in a South Indian market, which is so specific about the quality and so specific about everything they do, because guys, we are 16 laboratories worldwide. We are co-headquartered in London and New York. We got labs in Dubai. We got 11 labs in India. And I can tell you, South India is one of the only zones in the world where you have probably over 30, 40, 50,000 jewelers carrying one single quality, that is VVS EF. And let me tell you, this does not happen anywhere else in the world. So when a brand like Wonder launched in Coimbatore in 2021, this year, February, I was really skeptical. And I was thinking whether they'll be successful, not successful, what is going to be the case. To my surprise, they've done really well. They opened a store in Chennai 2 months ago, and they are launching a store in Bangalore next month. So this is the story on the laboratory grown front in a country like India, where I'm sure a lot of us are still not sure of how this is going to go. But having said that, these are two brands. Probably there are another couple of brands which I'm not mentioning here. But of course, you still have 99% of the market which is natural diamonds. What I'm trying to say is, this is a clear example of coexistence. Moving forward, I'm going to talk about the one-stop solution that SGL has recently launched, and we call it the Triple Shield. What does Triple Shield do in a nutshell is, we all are aware of the recent hallmarking updates and the supply chain constraint it is going to cause in terms of the timing, in terms of the logistical challenges that you have, in terms of everything else to get the product right to your doorstep. SGL has tied up with hallmarking agencies, and we've also tied up with a third-party metal QC partner, and we offer everything under one roof, which means if you will submit the product to SGL for certification, we'll take care of the hallmarking for you, we'll take care of the metal QC for you. You do not have to then ask your vendor to submit the hallmarking products for hallmarking separately, get it back, submit the products for certification, get it back, and in case if you are getting it QC'd, then it's a separate process altogether. With SGL, everything comes under one roof: the diamond certification, the gold hallmarking, and the metal quality check. Once again, we do not do hallmarking on our own or the QC on our own. We have approved third-party partners who are industry experts, who obviously are carrying a brand goodwill for what they're doing in the industry. And we have very, very carefully chosen our partners so that we can assure everybody 100% peace of mind, whether it is metal QC, whether it is gold hallmarking. Certification, of course, is taken care by us. And I don't need to really talk much about this because a lot of you all are already engaged in some or the other form of certification if it's the case. And what all does it cover is detection of laboratory grown diamonds in case if there is a contamination, of course. We have services like the on-site inspection, which we call the mobile laboratory. We have the QR code, which is in today's diamond world, it's very, very common. Everything is, on your phone, you snap the QR code and you can see the certificate on your phone itself. Can you play this video, please? A quick review on the laboratory. Right, so talking about hallmarking, I have a question for you again. Can anyone tell me when did hallmarking start? A ballpark figure. 2000. So sorry, I think I asked the wrong question. Probably in India it was 2000, 2006. When did it start internationally? Any guesses? When did it start internationally? Which was the first country to bring hallmarking as a law, and when was it? No, US in fact it's not mandatory even today. UK, yes. Any guesses on which year?
1930s, 50s.
They started the lab in 1908, my friend. 1200. Who said that? You're spot on. It is almost 750 plus years that UK had introduced something called stamping. The king at that point of time had made it mandatory that every single piece of jewelry that is made had to be stamped with the seal. And as there were more and more products produced, they came up with something called the Goldsmiths Hall, which is still there in central London today. And when the jewelers had to take their products to the hall for marking, that is stamping, the process of hallmarking evolved. This is the brief history of hallmarking. Britain is the first country to also make it mandatory, and even today they have only 4 centers and they hallmark around 2.5 million products every year, which is of course number wise is a much smaller compared to India. I just thought I'll throw some light on what is the history of hallmarking. So guys, all of you are aware of what is the recent update, what is the process. How can SGL help is by working with our hallmarking partners to make your life easy, to make to ensure that the products have a lesser processing time, to ensure that the quality is maintained, and to ensure that everything is exactly the way it should be. So certification, hallmarking, and the metal quality check, which includes your whether the finish is perfect or not, whether there is a prong which is loose or not, whether there is a metal which is cracked, whether there is incomplete rhodium finish on it, or whatever it is related to a metal quality check is also going to be taken care by our partners. And we have as of today launched one single partner in Bombay and Calcutta and Jaipur. The gentleman is also a third party QC head for Tanishq, and has been in the industry for over 25 years and is also a process consultant for some of the factories. So be rest assured that even though SGL does not carry out the metal quality check, we are ensuring the same standard with regards to metal quality check, with regards to hallmarking, and with regards to certification. So to sum it up, quick turnaround time, hassle-free solution, peace of mind, one single point of contact. Your goods have to be delivered just to SGL and will be taken up from there. And of course, if you would want a vendor analysis, we would provide that. We've recently revamped our website. You can go to My SGL and you will be able to see the entire report of which vendor has submitted which products, and if at all there are rejections, at which stage they were rejected and for what. So if you need any information on this, please feel free. We are right outside. Me and my team will be happy to help you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, dear sir. And thank you for teaching us so much as well. We've learned so much, sir. Please,
was
I
a
request you
pleasure.
to be center stage. And our lovely lady, Miss Shoma, to kindly present the memento to sir, please. Mr. Chirag Soni, thank you very much, dear sir, our co-founder of SGL. Thank you for taking us into the world of diamonds and also letting us know what the reality is. And of course, it's time for a real check. That's the need of the hour. Humble thanks to you, dear sir.